What's going on, Tamers? It's your boy Varney, and today we're back again with another video in what will kind of be a series, I guess? Because I already released the how I made this deck video as well as the actual deck profile, so this video just serves to cap on both of those videos. We concepted the deck, we built it, and we played some games. So now what? Generally, whenever a deck profile is posted, we get lots of feedback and people asking questions, wondering how things performed, etc. I've even had people reach out asking for tips and the whys and the why nots, so I figured that this video would be good to explore what to do once all is said and done. First off, we'll take a look at what the deck submission ended up being, and then we'll go over the changes that I made. We'll also take a look at some cards that you can consider if this is a deck that you're interested in playing yourself, and then I'll address some of the comments that I've seen across our various social media just to put it out there for public knowledge and for you all to hear and see. So let's jump into it. So starting off here, I zoomed out so that you guys could see all of the cards, but I am going to zoom in so that we can get a better look at some of the cards and I can explain things a little bit more in depth. The first thing I'll do before we zoom in is I just want to go over how many one-ofs that I adjusted from this version of the deck. We had a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 one-ofs, which I really wasn't aware how many one-ofs I had in the deck until somebody mentioned it from our Connecticut group chat. And I was like, yeah, that's a lot of one-ofs. So right off the bat, the first thing I'll tell you guys is generally one-ofs are cards that you're like, I could use it for this matchup, but I don't need it in all of my matchups, hence why it's a one-of, because it's typically meant to help you with like one specific niche case, one specific scenario. Having 13 one-ofs, I mean, the deck worked, but 13 one-ofs is a lot because what it told me from the broad overview of the deck is that, wow, I was really trying to touch on like every little thing that this deck could try to do. Like Merciful Mode was for my purple matchups, for Devas. Awakening of the Golden Knight, well, that's just a good card, but it was also there for Yellow Vaccine and for Devas. And then Ruin Mode was there for all the decks that, you know, pull out a Raising with their 5k or less. And then Dexmon was to help me control boards. And then Magna Ace was supposed to help me with some things that Pseudo Ace might not be able to help me with, and vice versa. And then I had the Shu for trying to get that Sec +1, but then I had Tai for trying to be defensive. And then I had the one of Digimon Emperor in case they raised out like a rookie. And then the one of Louis, just so I could get a little bit of an extra aggression. Like, there was just like, this is a case of there's too many ideas and the deck needs to be streamlined. It's okay to have one-ofs if they're serving their purposes, but in my case, what I found is that I did want some more cards that I actually was able to pull into them. And so in our second iteration of the deck, we cut down the amount of one-ofs. We went to 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 one-ofs. We cut that down by 8, an insane number, and instead we opted for the consistency of seeing the things that we wanted to see more. So in V1, we had our 4 jamming Vmons. We only had 2 of this Searcher. We also had 4 BT13 and only 3 BT8 Magnamons. And then of course, y'all already know how I feel about my Pseudo Ace and the Magna Ace. We only had 1 of each of those. We had 4 Magna X. We had 3 different level 7s for different scenarios. We had the 1 of Full Moon Meteor, 1 Awakening, and then of course our Tamer lineup, 1 Shu, 1 Tai, and then a 1 split on Digimon Emperor and Louis. Going into our new list, we bumped down the amount of jamming Vmons. We took that down from 4 to 2. The reason I took that down is because off of Promo Davis, jamming V, honestly, it's doing nothing. It's literally just giving you a body to digivolve into. And my thought logic is that the deck doesn't run memory boost. So you're pulling into all your cards either by raw draw power or by actually searching them out. So if I'm going to drop Promo Davis, I would love to also drop the Searcher Vmon so that I can get a search and add a card back to hand. Because in terms of card economy, you drop a Promo Davis and a jamming Vmon pulls 2 cards out of your hand. And unless you're playing against Mirage, pulling cards out of hand and not being able to replace them is really big neg. It's a -2. But if you go Promo Davis and then you drop the Searcher V to pull a card back, then you only neg 1 card in terms of card economy, which is much better than a neg 2 unless it's against Mirage. And You can't just say, well, you know, that's better for playing against Mirage, because then you're taking away, you get into this, well, here's a bunch of one-ofs to try to deal with these specific scenarios type thing. And it's just not a good way to deck build. It really isn't. You want a game plan for your worst matchups. Like, what do I lose really hard to? And is there a way that I can make that matchup better? And then when you're trying to game plan for some other matchups, it's, well, how does this card not only help me in that matchup, but in the other matchups where this card is dead? Because if the card is dead in the other matchups, you're going to pull into it and you're going to hate that card. You're going to wish that you never saw it. And that's kind of what happened to me a lot on Saturday, especially with the Magna Ace. So jamming V down to 2. We put the starter deck 9 searcher V up to 4. Searching your Ukomons, the free trait, honestly really disgusting. The perfect play is like Digivolve Uko and Raising, and then you play a Promo Davis, you play a Searcher V, and then you pull like an armor or something. But even if you miss out on that Uko and Raising, when you play the Vmon and you see an Ukomon, if you don't want to pull an armor, let's say you already have an armor in hand, and you don't see any other Vmons you want to take, just saying, all right, screw it, I'll pull the Ukomon, is just so dirty. Because then your opponent knows you have it. So you can Digivolve it the next time, or you can even just hard slam it. And then that's why I like Louis, because you can hard slam Ukomon, and then you can drop the Louis, and then you're going to gain 2 memory. So yeah, you just paid 6, but you actually only really paid 4. You got to hatch a new egg. And if you had enough memory, well then that's worth its weight, you know? So I really like starter deck V. I wished I had had more on Saturday, and so what I decided was to bump that up to 4, jamming V down to 2. Then another change we made was bumping the BT13 Magnamon down to 3 and putting BT8 up to 4, because BT8 Magnamon is a really good attacker. Like, yes, they all have blockers, so inherently they're just great defensive pieces, and they have armor. Well, this one has armor purge, this one has armor purge, this one has the float effect. But what makes Magnamon really good is that when Digivolving, you get to unsuspend it. And I literally had a time in one game, I can't remember which one it was, but I know I had a game where I was searching for BT8 Magnamon because I needed one more swing to close game out. And I had the Awakening of the Golden Knight in hand. And unfortunately, I had these and I didn't need these because these don't unsuspend themselves. This Magnamon, when you take the swing and if it doesn't armor purge, okay, that's fine. Awakening of the Golden Knight, you can just Digivolve it on top of itself, because Awakening of the Golden Knight only specifies that you have to Digivolve into a Magnamon in its name in your hand. So you could just double stack those armors if it means that you're just going to go for game. It's basically like your poor man's armor texture without needing to dedicate space to armor texture. So I really liked that combo, and that's why I put this one up to 4. Also just because that DP gaining is so good. For every armor that ends up in trash, you're just plussing. You're really just plussing. The card is so good. I do like this Magnamon a lot though. I didn't regret seeing it at 4. And honestly, it's really good to just hard play. Like sometimes, funny enough, I didn't have anything else to do, or I was under a ruin mode effect. And if I could just drop Magnamon, yeah, it's cost 7, but it is going to draw me a card when it leaves the battle area. It still has blocker and it can still float out a body. It's really nice. I would probably consider running this at 4. It just depends on how some of my other changes in the deck work out. I said it from the door. We're going up to 3 Zoodle Ace. We did. We dropped that Magna Ace because and we went up to 3 Zoodle Ace. We also bumped down a Magna X to fit room for the 3rd Zoodle Ace. So Magna X is a good card. I wouldn't not run it. This card against some matchups is just like, haha, deal with it. And this card against every matchup that doesn't have bounce is going to say, okay, cool. I died by DP reduction. I died by deletion. I died by battle. I just get a free recover 1. Literally, it's just when this Digimon would be deleted, you put him to the top of security and you prevent that deletion. And because he's always going to be redirecting attacks when he has Armor Form or X Antibody in his Digi-Evolution cards. So that's just like, that's really good. It's not a once per turn either. Like Red Hybrid, if you're able to establish this early game, it shuts down all of their plays because you can just redirect everything into Magna X. What, they're going to delete it? That's fine. You just go to security. It's just a free recover 1. And then on top of that, if you're doing that, that means you were most likely on top of an armor form that also has armor purge, or in this case has that float effect, which is still really freaking good. And one big combo that I love in this deck is using Protoform. I didn't because my aces didn't show up when I needed them on Saturday. but I know that this is a combo that is phenomenally great. Protoform on a Zudo Ace to go into Magna X, turns on that Magna X ability. Then when they try to pop this stack, you're just like, all right, cool. Magna X to security. Now, keep in mind, Protoform is interruptive. When this Digimon would leave the battle area, other than by one of your effects, from this Digimon's Digievolution cards, return one Digimon card to the hand. So that is mandatory. So if it was going to be deleted, like normally you would just say, all right, cool, I'll just, go back into an armor or something. And this way you are forced to take the Zudo Ace back to hand. However, if that Ace overflow was going to be paid, I'd rather have paid it getting this card back to hand than leaving it on field for my opponent to delete. Putting this card back to my hand immediately says, haha, whatever you do, I've got another ace just chilling in my hand for the low cost of 4, which is dirty disgusting. Absolutely dirty disgusting. And then Protoform does end up in security as well. So I don't look at the overflow for this combo of Protoform, Zudo Ace, Magna X as, damn, like I gotta pay overflow. I look at it as, cool, I'll pay 3 for Lament of Friendship blue version to get Zudo Ace back to hand and be able to use it again. And I just find that really strong. Another combo somebody had pointed out to me on Reddit was that this is one that I hadn't done because I generally just go from Magnamon into Magna X, considering that Magna X can digivolve 4 from a Magnamon, or 3 with Protoform. But if you end up blasting into a Zudo Ace on top of any one of your armors, you can obviously still use Protoform to go into Magna X for the cost of 3. And then when your opponent tries to delete it or it dies or whatever, you can do the same thing where you Protoform, pull back Zudo Ace, Proto goes to security, Zudo Ace to hand, you pay the overflow, but then you end up with an armor purge or a floater, level 4, instead of just this ace that can be deleted and then you lose your whole stack for essentially nothing. That is just, that combo, really insane, really good, and I like that a lot. Zudo Ace, it already proved to be a really good card on Saturday, so putting this card up to 3 was an absolute no-brainer. And Protoform, I knew from Friday night, I was like, I gotta play the one with Protoform. Did not regret it at all, and I wished I was able to see it more. If I was still running Magna X at 4, I would run Protoform at 2 instead of Awakening of the Golden Knight. Probably is the keyword there. Still gotta fine-tune some of the ratios. Another change y'all see, we dropped this down to 3, so obviously we did drop both Merciful and Ruin mode. Neither card really came up for me. In one match, I probably should have done the Merciful mode against Devas, but I don't think it would have changed the game too drastically because there were ways I could have won without needing to do Merciful mode in the first place, i.e. if I just saw a little bit more of my bottom end, having the Ukomon and also having the Louis. So I think having just the Dexmon is good enough. Dexmon is definitely a must-have because you need something to deal with a large board when your opponent is, like Yellow Vaccine and they got this large-ass board that you can't deal with. I would run Dexmon at 2, to be honest, but that's another change that we'll consider depending on how this version of the deck works out. One big thing, I know I wanted to see more of my removal, so I put my removal up to 4. Heaven's Judgment is great, but it does require you to effectively have Magna X or these 2 Magnamons in play because it doesn't proc on anything else. So, in the event that you can't cast Heaven's Judgment, Full Moon Meteor Impact does the job, and it's never 8 cost unless your opponent has a Gazimon in play. It generally is going to play for about 6 because you can rely on your opponent having about 8 cards in hand. Sometimes they can have 12 and this would cost 5. If it's an ace, against Devas, you might not want to put it back into their hand, but it is going to be very cheap removal at that point, and it's also not going to trigger on deletions, which is a very big thing. So I put that up to 2/2 each because I honestly just felt like I didn't see them. So they never felt like bricks in hand at 3. I don't feel like they'll feel like bricks in. I don't think there'll be bricks in hand at 4, but we'll see. That's a change that could potentially happen. We put Awakening of the Golden Knight up to 2. Reason we put this up to 2 is because I had this come up in security once, and the moment it did, I was like, oh my goodness, I wish this happened more often. And so I'm not relying on it happening all the time. But if it ever ends up in security, being able to return a Magnamon named card from trash to hand, i.e. being able to return this busted card to your hand, or even your Magna X if you end up needing it, is really good because then you also get this to hand and you can use it. But also because Vaccine is very prevalent, I feel like with the recent win that it got in the Ultimate Cup. A lot more people are going to be on vaccine, and so we'll need to deal with a lot more DP reduction. Also, Numemon has DP reduction. Also, Devas has DP reduction. So it's not a bad card. This is why I'm opting for Awakening at 2. And also because I do use this as an offensive piece, like I said. Being able to go into BT8 again, because you can just stack Magnamon on top of Magnamon and be able to, take that aggressive swing for game is just really good. And the reason that you're able to do that, I should say that in case people are like, well, how can you do that? This card specifies you ignore the Digi-Evolution requirements. So the Digi-Evolution requirements here are right here. A level 3 yellow or blue, or from a Vmon. But if you ignore the Digi-Evolution requirements, you're ignoring those, meaning that you have this Magnamon that's ignoring Digi-Evolution requirements, so you can just go Magnamon on top of a Magnamon. That's why this card is at 2, and I think it'll work. Now, coming up to our Tamer lineup, we've got Davis at 1, the Memory Setter BT3 Davis. Now, I did like Shu, and I did like Tai. Shu is coming out of the deck, though, because I just never am able to have that Magna X on field long enough to get value out of it. And also because I bumped it down to 3, so it's really not going to come up for me. I took Tai out as much as I liked it because I generally never felt like I needed a memory setter. I never felt like I either needed to pay the memory for one or like I was like, damn, like I need a memory setter right now. So in the event that I do end up saying, damn, I really need a memory setter, I want a searchable one. Because your BT12 Vmon searches for both a free trait and a Davis. So if this card isn't already sitting in your hand and it's not in security and you haven't bottom decked it yet off of, this search, that means this card is searchable. And so dropping BT12 to search for your memory setter Davis is really strong when you need it. So that's why we opted for these 4 total Davises. I'd love to bump promo up to 4, but space is very tight, and I think the other cards warrant their spots in the deck to not bump Promo Davis up to 4, though it's not a bad choice to be honest. But just being able to search out my memory setter for when I might need him is really strong. And the last change that we made, we did go up to 2 Louis. Louis is so cracked. Louis Ukomon is so cracked for this deck. I had a comment that was like, why do you run so many rookies? Not in a negative way, just genuinely curious as to why, let me bring up the stats here, why we run 18 rookies. That's because 4 of them are Ukomon. So we actually run 14 Vmons, which isn't out of the norm. But we run 18 in this deck because of the 4 Ukomon. And Ukomon combined with Louis is such a bonkers combo. Let's paint the picture. You Digivolve Ukomon in Raising. All right, cool. Whatever, you're not going to be able to pull that Ukomon out till next turn. But wait, you can come here, play Louis. Louis is going to move that level 3 or higher from breeding to battle area on play. And then he reads, when one of your Digimon moves from breeding to battle, you tap him and you gain a memory. But wait, Ukomon reads, when one of your Digimon moves from breeding to battle area, you may hatch, then gain a memory. So this sees itself moving. That means if you Digivolve Uko and Raising and you play a Louis, you have played Louis for 1 cost, you hatched a new egg, you gained 2 memory, that's hence the 1 cost. You can start Digivolving again, and you now have a swing because it works just like the Mimi. When you have a level 5 or higher in play, you tap it to hatch or you tap it to bring it out. That won me a game. That exact combo won me a game. Being able to play Louis, bring Uko out and take a swing. My opponent wasn't aware that it was able to do that. And I was like, yes, it's just like the Mimi effect. I've had so many more situations where I either wanted to do that play or I had a Vmon in Raising because I needed to Digivolve it because it was my only rookie in hand. But I was like, damn, I wanted to be able to play it. I just didn't know if I'd pull into another rookie, and I want to make sure that I have a rookie in Raising. If I had a Louis in hand, I'd be fine because I could play Louis for a cost of 2 because that's what it ends up being. And then I can pull out my Vmon and then I could Digivolve into my armor. And then if I have an Ukomon on the field, I'm just going to get to hatch again and get to, accelerate and build up a little bit more. And that is just really, really good. I wanted to see Louis way more often than I did. So rather than put my Protoform up to 2 with the Magna X, I definitely opted for the 2 Louis just so that I could be a little bit more aggressive. Now let's take a look at some honorable inclusions. First up, somebody asked me about BT8 Vmon. I don't like this card. I don't like cards that search a large amount of cards and can bottom deck them. Memory Boost being the exception. This searches a top 4 to take a 2-color blue card, bottom decks the rest. Now, this can take in the deck, let's take a look, your Magnamons, your Magna X. That's it, that's all it can take. So this card, the BT8 Vmon, is going to pull into a total of 8, 11, 14 cards in my deck. But my 2 Searcher Vmons can pull into 4, 8, 12, 16, 18, 22, 25, 29 cards in my deck. Yes, it doesn't pull into the Magna X. I never felt like I needed to see the Magna X. And if I did, I could just rely on raw draw power. And if it was that bad that I felt like, oh, well, like I do want to be able to search out Magna X, I'll just play a mem boost. I'll cut something here and run a memory boost instead, because at least a memory boost gives me back memory later. This Vmon, only being able to pull that 2-color blue card in this version of the deck, that's no bueno for me. Where this Vmon is better is if you're playing Davis and Ken, because you can pull into that tamer. If you're playing Megadeth, because you can also add that option card. For me personally, no, I did not like this card. I also don't like revealing 4 to bottom deck 3. I would rather reveal 3 to bottom deck 2. That sounds a hell of a lot better to me. So that's why I don't play this Vmon. Another thing here, the Shakumon. Shout out to Adrian. Adrian doesn't like Shakumon. Reason he doesn't like Shakumon is because he doesn't like giving up a stack. And that's fair. Shakumon is going to get you recovery if you have 5 or fewer security, but it's only going to get the bounce if you're DNA digivolving. So that means you would have to sacrifice 2 of your armors just to go into the Shakumon that has no protection, and then sure, you could go into Magna X. The only way I do this combo is if I had Protoform to do this with, because I would DNA, then Protoform to go into Magna X, and then when it would be deleted, I can pull this back to hand, and then I end up with an armor that has Armor Purge. The only issue there is that it's going to Armor Purge into its level 3, and you're still going to have an Armor Form in source. So unless you're able to do that Protoform again to go into Magna X, then you can pull this back, but then you're just relying on like too much RNG, you know? And I don't like giving up this sort of resources just for this card, which isn't like, oh my goodness, I need to run it. If the card had, it's a good effect, don't get me wrong, but it doesn't elude to me, oh my goodness, I need to run it. Especially not when you've got 3 Zudo Aces that cost 4, that's gonna strip 2 sources and then bounce something with no source, which is arguably better than the Shakumon effect. So me personally, that's why I don't play it. Jesmon GX, y'all know this was in the first iteration of the list. This card is really good because it combos with the BT8 Magnamon extremely well. You can't digivolve from it, but the combo is you have Magna X, you take a swing. You digivolve in the Jesmon GX because it digivolves 5 from a level 6 with Royal Knight and traits. And then on digivolve, you can tuck a play cost 13 or less Royal Knight trait from your trash underneath and activate one of that card's when digivolving effects, and then you can blitz. So you've already taken the swing, you went into Jesmon GX, you tuck BT8 Magnamon underneath, you get to unsuspend, gain DP, and then Jesmon GX lets you blitz. And then considering that you probably already have an armor form in source because you digivolved into Magna X, you've now got Magna X, 2 armor forms, which are both Royal Knights. That's 3 Royal Knight sources. You're going to gain sec +1 for each such card. This Jesmon GX is going to hit with piercing for 4 checks at more than 15k DP most likely because of that Magnamon effect, which is absolutely bonkers. The only problem with this card is that it's not searchable. But is this card really good? Yeah. Me personally, I wanted to focus on doing what the deck does and doing it well. That's why I'm not playing it, and I opted for the Dexmon instead so that I can shore up some of those matches where they just go a little bit too wide for me to be able to deal with. But that combo is still very potent, and it's something that if you like, you know, why not? And playing Jesmon GX, you can also decide whether or not you want to play the X Antibody option card, because it combos very nicely with that. Because when attacking, then you can go into Jesmon GX and still get the unsuspend. You won't be able to blitz again because you're already mid-attack, but you would have Suedo reboot because you're going to get the unsuspend from BT8 Magnamon. Or another thing that you can consider, that you can still activate this effect. You get to trash the top card and potentially bounce, which could still be a strong thing depending on what's on your opponent's side of the field. So very good combos can happen with Jesmon GX and the X Antibody, but me personally, I'm a bigger fan of Protoform, and I'm a much bigger fan of doing what the deck does and doing it really well. Another card somebody asked me about was Ice Wall. Honestly, if my opponent's got that many things on their side of the field and I didn't draw into the Dexmon, I'm not gonna worry about it, you know? Ice Wall is great, but it's a one of. It's not a bad card, and it does help against almost every matchup because you can just play it and then just force them to not swing that turn. But in general, we've only got 50 cards in this deck to play with, and I rather hard removal. I rather say, all right, cool, whatever Digimon you had, I'll just take them off the field instead of letting you leave them there for another turn and get some swings in or whatever. So Ice Wall, it's a good card, but just not in the face of removal. I would rather run a hard removal. I talked about Mem Boost and not Mental Training, so let's talk about it real quick right now. Mental Training is good, but in this deck, I think it's bad. Shout out to Mike, because I was considering running Blue Memory Boost or Mental Training. He said you don't want to run Mental because you do run a fair bit of non-blue colored cards, which you could bottom deck. So if we zoom out here, we've got 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13 total cards that you possibly won't take off of Mental Training. I mean, the chances of pulling into them, like, I don't know what the statistics are behind it. It's not going to happen all the time, but it could definitely happen more often than you want it to. And if that's going to happen, Mike said you should just play Blue Memory Boost, search your top 4 and take a blue color Digimon instead, which for what it's worth, I don't necessarily care to take my options. Like, I'd love to search Protoform, but that's a cool boy card. Pulling into my Promo Davis is nice, but I could just rely on draw power for that. So if I want to pull into something, I'd rather just play Blue Memory Boost where I could find my Zuro Ace, where I could find the Magnax, where I could find the starter deck Magnamons instead. And also because the delay to gain 2 memory is much better than reducing your Digi-Evolution cost. Yes, memory blockers are more prevalent than our Digi-Evolution cost blockers. The big thing though is that you don't gain memory in this deck. You only have a memory setter if you decide to play it, or if you decide to play it in that match, and then you have start of main phase gain memory effect. It means that really at most you're starting your turn with 6. If you're doing Ukomon plays, you can go up to a little bit more, but it's just not, you don't have a consistent way to gain the memory. Blue Memory Boost lets you pull off more flexible plays, because if you're at, let's say, 2 memory, but that's what your opponent sets you to, you can't play the Vmon, you're gonna pass turn. You can Blue Memory Boost, gain the memory, then play the Vmon, then you can Digivolve, and that works. And this is why I've always said, you know, all of Dan, Mike, and myself have always said, Blue Memory Boost and Mental Training, the Memory Boost and the Training cards, they don't usurp each other. They work hand in hand. Some are good for some scenarios, some are good for other scenarios. A card I know some people love and swear by is Hammer Spark. Again, no space, and if I want to gain memory, I'd rather just run Memory Boost. It's like, where do I need this? To gain 1 more memory, it can be important, but when you're considering a 50 card deck that's already filled with stuff that you want to see, is Hammer Spark that important? No, I feel like that card's spot has gotten taken up by Ukomon and Louis. So Fire Rocket, another inclusion. You can play this as long as you have an armor form trait Digimon in play. You're going to give a Digimon with 2 or more colors Sec +1 security effect to pop a blocker. I definitely felt like I wanted more Sec +1 at times, but did I feel like I felt that way enough to run Fire Rocket? No, especially not considering the other cards. Do I want to bump my removal down to run it? Nah. Awakening? Yeah, but that spot is tightly contested because I did want to run the 4th BT13 Magnamon. I did want to run the 2nd Dexmon, the 4th Promo Davis. Like, Fire Rocket's good. I just don't feel like I have a spot for it. And I won my games without Fire Rocket, which speaks to me and says, you don't really need this unless you're in a bad situation. And if you're in a bad situation, there's probably other avenues that you can take to get out of that bad situation than just relying on having Fire Rocket. Armor texture, like I said, you know, Awakening is poor man's armor texture. This lets you trash the top card being the armor form trait. So if you swing your Magnamon, it doesn't die. You can play armor texture, trash that Magnamon, then you can Digivolve into another armor form. And if you do, you can unsuspend. So this does what BT8 does, but better because you can do it on all your armor forms. My only thing is I don't have any space. Would I run one of this and one Awakening? I mean, maybe, but I'd rather have Awakening because it's a little bit more flexible given the meta. Armor texture is great, and if I had space, I'd run it, but I don't. So, I mean, that's just kind of, you know, why we don't run the card. And so that's it. I know this video was a little bit longer than the initial video. You know, we did that was about 15 minutes. This one's a little bit about 30 minutes, I want to say. I just felt like there were some really good insights that you can have as to how you evaluate your deck post-tournament performance. A video I'm going to follow this series up with is an actual, like, all right, cool, let's go through our matches, let's think about what worked for us in those matches and what didn't, and just to kind of give you guys a feel as to where does the mind go once these tournaments finish. Like for this video, it was cool, where does the deck go? Like what changes do you make to the deck? What did you want to see? Like what were the immediate things you thought after that tournament finished? But you do want to take a little bit more of an in-depth look. If you're a competitive player and you want to improve, you want to take a much more in-depth analytical look at, okay, where did I go wrong? What did I do? And so with that in mind, I do have all of my matches recorded, obviously, because I streamed. I'm going to be recording those matches and uploading them with commentary so that you guys can watch and we can find out together what I screwed up on and what were some good plays that I made and things of those sorts. But you know, this is turning out to be a kind of a series. I don't really know what I'm going to call it, if I'm going to call it anything at all. But if you guys liked this video, you want to see more videos like this, the ones that I've been making, or you have ideas for things that you want to see from me, let me know in the comments down below. And if you like the video, drop a like, because I appreciate it. Let me know that you guys actually are enjoying this content. And most importantly, don't forget to subscribe so that you know when future videos come out. Anyways, thank you guys for watching the video. And until we talk to you guys the next time, peace out.